one is finding the absolute value. Something you might want to write down on your card is the formula for this. So if you have the absolute value of a complex number, a plus bi, then to find the absolute value of that, you're going to do the square root of a squared plus b squared. Notice that the a and the b are the coefficients, so there should be no I underneath the radical, okay? So your a value here is 2, your b value is 1. That's what you're going to be plugging into your equation. Okay, for this one, there is no real value, so that would be a 0. Your b value is negative 5. Negative 5 squared is 25. Square root of 25 is 5. You don't put the plus or minus with these because you're not solving. This is the equation, and the equation is going to be the positive value there. Okay, questions for me on 1 and 2? Okay, so again, this might be something good to write on your note card. All right, and then, and this whole review is 2.9, so if you find that you need some more practice with this, 2.9, any of the homework problems, that would be a great place to find some more practice. All right, and then here you're adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing. So if you're adding or subtracting, you're just combining your like terms. So 4 and 3 is 7, 2i minus 7i is negative 5i. If you have the negative, you do have to distribute the negative, so I like to write mine below once I distribute. Negative 4, and then a negative times a negative is a positive. Then you combine your like terms. 3 minus 4 is negative 1. 11i plus 5i is going to be 16i. Okay, and then we get to the multiplication. So when you multiply, this becomes 36i, and then when you multiply and you have multiple i's, they make I squared. Okay, so now you're going to plug in, what do you plug in for I squared? Negative 1. Okay, and then if you have 36i plus 40, remember you have to write it in the form a plus bi. Okay, so all these will be in a plus bi form, and that's why your final answer is 40 plus 36i. Okay, this one is very similar where you're going to distribute, so this is negative 8i. Negative 2i times 5i is negative 10i squared. And then, of course, when you plug in the negative 1, that makes it negative 8i plus 10. And then you just have to write it in a plus bi form, which is 10 minus 8i. So make sure you keep the negatives where those have to go. All right, and then for number 7, you have 2 minus 3i, and then 5 plus 8i. Actually, I'll put that work over here for number 7. Okay, so for number 7, we have 2 minus 3i times 5 plus 8i. What technique do you have to do with this? FOIL. Okay, so we're going to FOIL, or FEAL, I like to FEAL. So 2 times 5 is 10. In the middle here, you have negative 15i. In the outside, you have plus 16i. And then negative 3 times 8 is negative 24. And then I times I will be I squared. And then, of course, this becomes negative 1, so this becomes plus 24. So 10 plus 24 is how we get the 34. Negative 15i plus 16i is just I. So 34 plus I. How'd that go? Good. All right, and then for number 8, there's multiple ways you can do this. Your final answer is 2/3 minus 4/3 I. So I boxed that in right there. 2/3 minus 4/3 I. How many of you did the same thing that I wrote down here, where you multiply by negative 3i? Okay, good. What else did you guys multiply by? Some people multiply by positive 3i, that's fine. Some people multiply by I, that's fine too. Okay, but when you multiply, make sure you take into account the signs. 3 times negative 3 is negative 9. I times I is I squared. So when you plug in negative 1, you should get a positive 9 on the bottom. And then on the top, you get negative 12i minus 6i squared, because you're distributing. So negative 12i plus 6 would be the simplified version. And then you have to make sure that you simplify each one of these. So you're reducing. 12 and 9, 3 goes into both. It reduces to negative 4/3 I. 3 goes into both 6 and 9, so that would be 2/3. And then you have to write it in the form a plus bi. That's how you get your final answer. Okay, what questions do you guys have for me?
So for number 8, you said that you could multiply by negative 3i, 3i, or just I.
Yep.
How would that benefit you? Or
So,
is that going to answer?
really, the only way it would benefit you is if you multiplied by I, because then you wouldn't have to reduce at the end. So if you just multiplied by I, it would look like this. You have 4 plus 2i over 3i multiplied by I over I. On the bottom, you have 3i squared. When you plug in the negative 1, you have negative 3. And then on top, you would distribute. So it would be 4i plus 2i squared. So 4i minus 2. And then when you split this up, be 4 over negative 3i, negative 2 over negative 3. And then you would just have to rewrite it. So this is still a negative. This would be a positive. And then write it in the proper form. But you could do it like that. Yeah, the only benefit would be not reducing, but you still have to deal with those negatives, so. Yeah. All right, and then we have our quadratic formula. So if you don't already, I would put the quadratic formula on your note card. X equals the opposite of b plus or minus b squared minus 4ac over 2a. Okay, and then for number 9, you have 2 whole numbers. Okay, so x equals negative 1 or negative 6. And I know sometimes the whole numbers kind of mess people up because you can actually simplify it. So once you get here, negative 7 plus or minus the square root of 25, the square root of 25 is 5. So you can do negative 7 plus 5 and then divide that by 2. And you can do negative 7 minus 5 and divide by 2. Right? Because negative 7 plus 5 is negative 2. When you divide that by 2, you get negative 1. Negative 7 minus 5 is negative 12. Divide that by 2 and you get negative 6. Okay? How did those go? There were some just like this at the beginning of 2.6. Okay, so this here is 2.6. If you need some more quadratic formula practice, 2.6 would be a great place. And then the rest of it is 2.9. Okay, so if you need any work with any of this, 2.9 is where you want to go. All right, and then number 10, again, that's the quadratic formula, so the opposite of b plus or minus. When I plug mine in, I like to do the b squared right away, so that's why you see 16 instead of 4 squared. And then 16 minus 36 would be negative 20. Now, when you have something underneath the radical that's negative, you have to take the I out. You also have to make sure and check for what? What are we looking for with this number? Yep, so, yeah, what are we looking to simplify underneath the radical? Simplest radical form means you're taking out the what? Perfect squares. Okay, so the perfect square would be 4. So I wrote it as root 4 times root 5. You guys can do the factor tree, but you will get 2i root 5. And then remember, you have to divide both of these by 2. Okay, so in this case, both of them simplified. Negative 4 divided by 2 was negative 2. And then 2i root 5 over 2 was I root 5. Okay, so that would be your final answer. If you have a radical, remember the I goes in front. You could put it on the outside. I wouldn't mark that wrong. Just be careful, because the I cannot go inside the radical. It's outside.